For the love, you stating your personal belief that Harris will adjust policy after electoral leverage is gone is not good. You have a platforming responsibility not to tell people that the target is the left of wherever where this is the target. You have a platform and a responsibility not to tell people that the target is to the left of where it is. Kamala Harris's policy is the target. Don't lie about what her policy would be. Well, I don't think I'm lying. I think that's a little strong. I actually think I'm speaking pretty much in lockstep with the uncommitted activists, who, including the speaker, who should have been on the stage, the Georgia state representative there, Ruah Roman, is voting for Harris and is indicating that she feels that she'd be better. The uncommitted Abbas
Alawi and Layla El-Abed are the co-founders,
is also voting for Harris and thinks she'll be better. And in our conversation with Daniel Denver, they said they've made incremental progress. So you don't need to like what I have to say, but I don't want. But
that's deferential to what they are saying.
But if you accuse me of lying, I'm going to get annoyed because I've been nothing but honest about my assessment about this kind of stuff. And if you want to hear something else, you don't need to tune in. But I'm here to give my read. And that's it. I'm not trying to demobilize anybody. In fact, I think it's actually galvanizing to say, like, you can push this person. Let's push. Let's push. You know, with Biden, it felt so hopeless because of his ossified brain, because of his racism, because of the nature of, like, him being willing to tank the election for Israel. And if you don't want to reckon with, like, Biden's record on this, that's on you. Because we've had people on this program talk about Biden's history and record on this, about him being, throughout his career in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s in the Senate, being the most right-wing Democrat on Israel, like almost exclusively, not all the time, right? But one of the handful of the most right-wing anti-Palestinian racists. Kamala Harris ran in California. Yeah, she does AIPAC fundraisers. No shit. No shit. That's a massive state. Of course she does that kind of stuff. I'm not saying she's Rashida Tlaib. I'm saying she's a normal Democrat. And even Obama was much better than Biden on Israel. Biden undercut Obama and Hillary Clinton trying to get tough on Netanyahu because he was so obsessed with this mythologizing of Israel as reparations for the Holocaust. No one seems to want to deal with that history when talking about Kamala Harris versus Biden. Oh, it's going to be entirely consistent. Really? Like, I mean, reckon with that first. Is Biden worse than most Democrats on Israel? If you don't think that that's the case, then you just don't want to vote for Democrats, and that's fine. That's fine. That's your decision, right? But that is an actual his actual track record here. And it's distinct and different from a lot of other Democrats. I think her politics are more aligned with Obama's on foreign policy than Biden's. And that's also displayed in who she's hired as her national security advisor as vice president, who is Phil Gordon, who is an Iran deal Democrat, or Iran deal advisor for Obama, which Israel lobbied against. Obama was courageous in that sense. It's maybe the best thing he did as president, honestly. Making the Iran nuclear deal, despite Netanyahu and the Israel lobby getting outraged because they want continued tensions with Iran, because Israel has colonialist aims in the region. So that's her advisor. Biden's advisors are different. They're from the West Exec crew. These are substantive things that I just don't understand why people reflexively don't want to deal with it. They don't want to deal with it because it's easier to fall into nihilism than to engage with the little gradations here and then say, this is the crack where we can alleviate this. Let's just throw her hands up. She's exactly the same. She's exactly the same. If that was my honest assessment, I'd say that to you because I was being honest about Biden the entire time. And I mean, you can disagree with me, but don't accuse me of lying, okay?
Can I just also add a little bit
Sure.
to this? I would feel similarly to thinking that there would be no continuation if I looked back on Kamala Harris's career and was like, oh my God, right. Kamala Harris, when she was in the Senate in the 1970s and 80s, Menachem Begin remembered her as someone who was actually almost too bloodthirsty in terms of wanting to kill Palestinians, more than other Senate Republicans, more than Ronald Reagan, in a way where he went back and told his advisors, this one senator from California, he's almost more of has more fealty to the cause than I do, and I'm the president of Israel.
Right. Right.
I would also feel similarly if when there was debates over settlement freezes in the late 2000s that Kamala Harris was going behind her president and her Secretary of State to negotiate backroom deals and consult on speech writing to say we will never actually enter any agreements to actually endorse settlement freezes in the West Bank. But wait, Kamala Harris was born in 1964. She would have been 16 when the 80s started, and I don't believe she was vice president in 2008, 2009. That was just Joe Biden, actually. Because Joe Biden has an ideological, nigh fanatical commitment to Israel. And he mentioned Golda Meir's name to tout his foreign policy bona fides, not so much as 2 or 3 weeks ago when he was being interviewed by George Stephanopoulos. That woman was born in the 1800s. Yeah. This is a different circumstance.
It's a different circumstance.
He has a fanatical, historical, entrenched, nostalgic, sentimental connection to the state of Israel. It is something. It's like my connection to the New York Jets. It is undying. It is irrational. It's unreasonable, and it's something that can almost not be reasonable. It's not
honestly. Israel is the New York Jets.
It's not something that can be negotiated with.
Yep. Yeah.
Whereas Kamala Harris, whatever she might be saying, whatever her links to AIPAC, whatever she's saying on these stages, she just does. I'm saying it in terms of the argument of negative space. It is not something that she possesses that Biden did. I'm not saying she is going to ultimately become Nora Erekat or
it's insufficient.
I'm not saying she's going to become someone who becomes militantly pro-Palestine. I have no illusions about that. I'm just saying she does not possess that something that is a lodestone for Biden's cultural and human imagination that defines him, animates him, and has for 50 years.
He's a racist. I don't know what to tell you guys. He is an anti-Palestinian racist. He doesn't see them as human beings. This is quite clear. I mean, and I just think it's distinct and it's different. And
the reason I say negative space is because I'm not going off at being like, look at her, look at what she said. I'm not saying that. I'm not even saying her rhetoric has reflected that. I'm just saying I don't know how you could, as someone with Kamala Harris's career, be able to reach the summit of Biden's affinity for Israel, Biden's devotion to Israel. I just don't think you can do it.
I think okay, let's do this exercise we were kind of doing last night about who would be better than Kamala Harris in terms of who ran in 2020. There was a long list of Democrats that ran, or just normie Democrats we can conjure, right? Like in terms of her politics. She was, in my estimation, the 4th best Democrat in that primary, that very crowded 2020 primary, after Bernie, then the big distance, then Warren, then the big distance, then Castro, and then I'd say her is number 4, right? But I'd take her over Cory Booker.
Because Cory Booker is also, with his, kind of like Winnie the Pooh, sort of like a disposition, just like, I do think Israel has the right to defend itself. Yeah. And you're wonderful for coming up and talking to me about it.
Right.
While he literally is just like a complete and utter devotee to not just AIPAC, but, if you were ever thinking that Cory Booker was ever going to say one word about public schools as an actual nominee, he is, this guy was doing fundraisers and going to private events with Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner.
No. Like, he's closer to Josh Shapiro than Kamala Harris. She's better than Josh Shapiro. Okay, pick another normie Democrat that we could think of. I don't know, people I am who she's like.
There was one,
she's better in that race. I would take her over
Kirsten Gillibrand, the crypto bug.
Yep,
yeah,
better than that. Better than
thanks.
that. Him, her better than Klobuchar in that race.
Yeah, the person who wants to bludgeon her staff members with staplers.
Yep.
And,
although they are apparently our friends.
And ate a salad with a comb. Out of spite.
But she's a centrist as by trade.
Absolutely.
Okay, center left person.
And a irresponsible prosecutor.
Yes.
Someone who did not prosecute police violence very substantively as Hennepin County prosecutor.
Harris's record as a prosecutor, I think, is better than Klobuchar's. Okay, better than Buttigieg and his bread price fixing thing.
Yeah,
and his consultant class.
Buttigieg, who also mostly appeals to people who watch MSNBC 12 hours a day and are like, oh my God, he's going to go on Fox News and he's going to correct Sandra Smith. Oh my God.
Yeah.
He's going to say that gas prices are down. Look at the egg on her face. We being mainstream Democrats like frickin' annoying little hall monitor extra credit teachers' pets.
Oh my God.
That's what we when I say we, not even me, I'm saying like general Democrats, that's what they like. That's why they like Newsom to do kind of like,
yes.
Actually, by the way, my crime standard for throwing homeless people in the Los Angeles Bay, it's actually not as bad as Greg
I take her over Newsom. That's another thing. I think she might have
question.
So this is all I'm saying, guys. It's like, okay,
Newsom is West Coast DeSantis.
If we're being realistic here, that's all. We're putting that in the context, right? And of all that has been and that has came before us, that she's not doing enough for Gaza in rhetoric and in promises. I hate it, right? But it's about who we can move, and I don't like the implication that I was honest the whole time about, or that we were honest the whole time about Biden when we were critical of that, right? And we were talking about how he needed to drop out and we were being honest about his ideology. But why would I then suddenly be dishonest with Kamala Harris coming into the race, right? Why would we do that? Why would suddenly people be dishonest about it if we're just trying to get Democrats elected? Because our criticisms of Biden were honest, and then our feelings about her being a little bit better are honest as well. So I'm not trying to get too annoyed here. I know, like, you know, I don't want it's a tense time and it can be a frustrating conversation, but that's the reality of my observation.
And you know, obviously I'm being facetious and I'm just having a little fun. I'm also literally on on average 3.5-4 hours of sleep, so that's where all this is coming from. But what I'm basically trying to say when I'm talking about these nominees is, like, we use in sports the term replacement level, like it's like a baseball, when we say that, it's like a baseball statistic. It's used, but I think that's where it kind of comes from, value over replacement player. Basically, is this person better than like the baseline average player? And if you are above replacement, even if you're a freaking point, even if it's a minor gradation, who we're talking about, Pete Buttigieg, Cory Booker, Gavin Newsom, Josh Shapiro, Gretchen Whitmer, JB Pritzker, whoever, that's who it would be above replacement. That's who we're saying. It's like, that's the level.
Yeah.
And I think for the most part, you can ding and you can find anybody in that line of people who Harris is presumably either at or above replacement level when it comes to that roster. And I do not think for 1 second that any of those people I just mentioned wouldn't have basically given the speech that Kamala Harris gave almost in its entirety last night.
It was the most boilerplate Democratic speech of all time. So, all right, ostentatious as Winnie the Pooh disposition. Thank you, Bradley. Jan Bradley is right. It's generational. It's what influenced Biden growing up in the 1950s. Harris is on the cusp of that generation and will look at things differently. Max from NFL says her versus Beto. That's actually a hard one. They're similar. I would have to think about it a little bit more and have to remind myself of what Beto ran on. But that's the kind of politician that she is, I think.
Hey folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.